The Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly was the largest structure ever built by any species. Its crystal walls rose so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Light from 3 artificial suns filled the space with a golden glow. Delegates from over 100 species walked across floors made of polished stone from 100 different worlds. Park Ji-hoon stood near the back of the hall. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. For 15 years, he had served as Earth's ambassador to the Assembly. For 15 years, he had stood in this same spot, watching others make decisions about the future of the galaxy. Humans were not allowed to sit at the main table. They were observers, guests. They could watch, but they could rarely speak. The Velori controlled most of the assembly. They were beautiful creatures with skin that glowed like starlight. Their civilization was over 50,000 years old. They had explored the galaxy when humans were still living in caves. To them, humanity was like a child who had just learned to walk. The Velori recognized the delegate from the Kreth Collective, announced High Arbiter Veleth. He was the leader of the Velori, an ancient being whose glow was brighter than all others. His voice echoed through the hall like thunder. The Kreth delegate rose. The Kreth were insect-like creatures with hard shells and many legs. They controlled most of the trade in the galaxy. Their ships carried goods between 10,000 worlds. The collective requests additional patrol ships for the outer rim trade routes, the Kreth said. Pirate activity has increased by 12%. Veleth nodded slowly. The Assembly will provide 30 warships from the Central Fleet. 30 warships. Just like that. Ji-hoon remembered when he had requested just 5 ships to protect human colonies. His request had been denied. Humanity has not yet proven its value to the Assembly, they had told him. That was 5 years ago. He had stopped asking. On the other side of the hall, Dr. Kang Yuna watched the proceedings with a small device in her hand. She was Earth's chief scientific liaison, a brilliant woman who had spent her life studying alien technology. Her job was to learn from the elder races and bring that knowledge back to Earth. But learning was difficult. When no one would teach you, she had submitted 17 proposals for joint research projects. 17 times she had offered to share human discoveries and work alongside alien scientists. 17 times she had been rejected. Insufficient technological baseline, they always said. Human science was too primitive. Human ideas were just copies of things other species had invented long ago. Yuna knew this was not true. Humans had developed technologies that no other species had imagined. But whenever she tried to show them, they simply laughed. How cute, a Velori scientist had once told her. You reinvented the plasma converter. We stopped using those 10,000 years ago. He had not looked at her improved design. He had not noticed that her version was 30% more efficient. He had simply walked away far from the assembly hall. In the cold darkness of space, Admiral Choi Dong-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship. The ship was called Defiance. It was the largest vessel in Earth's fleet, though it would look tiny next to a Velori dreadnought. Dong-ho was an old soldier. He had fought in Earth's last war, the one that had united humanity and sent them to the stars. He had seen death. He had caused death. He had hoped that joining the galactic community would mean peace. Instead, it meant humiliation. Admiral, said his communications officer, we have received our new patrol assignment. Dong-ho already knew what it would say. The Dead Corridor? Yes, sir. The Dead Corridor was a region of space so empty and worthless that no other species wanted it. There were no habitable planets, no resources, no trade routes, just endless darkness and occasional asteroid fields. This was where the Assembly sent humanity's fleet. Out of sight, out of mind. Set course, Dong-ho said quietly. We will do our duty. He did not add what he was thinking. He did not say that someday things would change. He simply watched the stars through his window and waited back on assembly station. A human maintenance crew worked in the lower levels. There were 47 of them. Men and women who cleaned the waste systems, repaired broken pipes, and fixed machines that other species did not want to touch. Their leader was a young woman named Shin Hana. She had trained as a pilot. She had dreamed of commanding a starship. Instead, she commanded a team of janitors. Hana called one of her workers. The Kreth delegation says their quarters smell bad. They want us to clean it again. Hana sighed. They had cleaned those quarters 3 times already today. The Kreth were never satisfied. Tell them we will be there soon, she said as she walked through the station's lower corridors. She passed a group of Velori children on a school trip. They were being shown the primitive species exhibit, a display about younger civilizations. Humanity had its own section. There were pictures of Earth, videos of human cities, samples of human technology. One of the Velori children pointed at a human spacecraft model. Teacher, why is their ship so ugly? The teacher laughed softly. Because humans are still learning, dear. They are very new to space. Perhaps in a few thousand years, they will build something better. The children laughed too. They did not notice Hana standing in the shadows, listening. They did not see the look in her eyes. Hana returned to her work. She cleaned the Kreth quarters without complaint. She fixed a broken air system in the Morthian section. She smiled politely at every alien who looked down at her. But that night, alone in her small room, she opened a hidden file on her computer. It contained designs for a new type of warship. She had been working on it for 3 years, using knowledge she had gathered while fixing alien machines. The assembly thought humans were only good for cleaning. They thought humans were too stupid to understand advanced technology. They were wrong. Across the galaxy, in hidden places and quiet corners, other humans were doing the same thing. They watched. They learned. They remembered. Ambassador Ji-hoon returned to his quarters after another day of being ignored. Dr. Kang Yuna filed another rejected proposal. Admiral Dong-ho patrolled empty space. Shin Hana scrubbed floors and dreamed of stars. Humanity served the assembly with patience and quiet dignity. They did the jobs no one else wanted. They accepted the insults without complaint. They waited. Because humans understood something the elder races had forgotten. The universe did not care how old you were. It did not care how beautiful your civilization looked. The universe only cared about one thing. Survival. And humanity was very, very good at surviving. 40 years they had waited. They could wait a little longer. But someday, the waiting would end. Someday, the galaxy would learn what humans truly were. That day was coming soon. The warning came at night. Galactic Standard Time. Every screen on every station lit up with the same message. Emergency. 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 The void swarm had arrived. No one knew where they came from. Some said they were machines built by a dead civilization. Others believed they were a natural evolution of metal and hunger. It did not matter. What mattered was what they did. They ate starships. They consumed space stations. They turned living beings into more of themselves. They were a plague made of steel and wire, and they were spreading fast. In 3 weeks, they destroyed 12 Velori border worlds. Billions died. Entire fleets vanished. The greatest military power in the galaxy was losing. The assembly called an emergency meeting. Every species sent their highest leaders. The great hall was full for the first time in centuries. Ambassador Park Ji-hoon stood in his usual spot near the back. But this time, he had brought others with him. Dr. Kang Yuna stood at his side, holding a data device. Behind them stood a small group of human scientists and military officers. High Arbiter Villith's glow was dim. He looked tired, afraid. The assembly faces the greatest threat in 10,000 years, he announced. We must unite all our forces against this enemy. One by one, species pledged their ships and soldiers. The Kreth offered their trade fleet. The Morthians promised their research stations. Even the smallest civilizations gave what they could, and Ji-hoon raised his hand. The hall went quiet. Humans did not usually speak at assembly meetings. Many delegates looked confused. Some looked annoyed. Veleth's eyes narrowed. The assembly recognizes the human delegate. Ji-hoon stepped forward. His voice was calm and clear. Earth offers its full support in this crisis. Our fleet is small, but our engineers have developed new shield technology that may help. We have studied the swarm's communication patterns. We believe we can disrupt them. He paused. We offer this technology freely. No cost, no conditions. We only want to help. For a moment, there was silence. Then someone laughed. It was a Kreth delegate, his mandibles clicking with amusement. Others joined in. Soon, half the hall was laughing. Veleth raised his hand for silence. His face showed no emotion, but his voice was cold. The assembly thanks humanity for its ... enthusiasm. However, this is a matter for species with real military experience. Species with meaningful combat assets. Dr. Kan Yuna stepped forward. Arbiter, please listen. We have run extensive simulations. The current Velori battle formation has a 73% chance of failure. The swarm adapts too quickly. You need to see. Hand your approach. Simulations, Veleth repeated. His tone made the word sound like an insult. Humans and their simulations. Perhaps you should simulate a species that is worth listening to. The laughter returned, louder than before. Delegates from a dozen species pointed at the humans and made jokes. The Kreth clicked. The Morthians swirled with mocking colors. Yuna's face went red. She opened her mouth to argue, but Ji-hoon put a hand on her shoulder. Do not, he said quietly. She looked at him. His eyes were calm, peaceful, but there was something else there too. Something that had been building for 40 years. Ji-hoon turned back to face the assembly. The laughter continued around him. He waited until it died down. I understand, he said. His voice was still calm, almost gentle. Humanity is not wanted here. We are too young, too primitive, too foolish to help. Veleth nodded. Perhaps humanity's contribution could be evacuating civilians from danger zones. Your ships are small enough for transport work. More laughter. Someone shouted that humans were good at carrying luggage. Ji-hoon smiled. It was not a happy smile. No, he said. The laughter stopped. What did you say? Veleth asked. I said no. Ji-hoon's voice grew stronger. For 40 years, humanity has served this assembly. We have cleaned your stations. We have repaired your machines. We have answered your distress calls when no one else would. We have accepted every insult, every rejection, every humiliation. He looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of delegates who had never bothered to learn his name. We asked for nothing but respect. You gave us contempt. We offered to help. You laughed at us. He straightened his shoulders. So now humanity withdraws. From this meeting. From our assigned duties. From the Galactic Assembly itself. The hall went completely silent. Effective immediately, all human personnel will return to Earth. Our ships will leave your patrol routes. Our workers will leave your stations. Our scientists will take their research home. Our emergency responders will no longer answer your calls. Veleth's glow flickered. You cannot be serious. You need us. Without assembly protection, Earth would be vulnerable to what? Ji-hoon interrupted. The swarm? You cannot even protect yourselves." He shook his head. "No, Arbiter. We do not need you. We never did. We only wanted to be part of something larger. Something better." He turned to leave. Yuna and the other humans followed. "You will regret this," Velith called after him. "When you come crawling back, begging for help, we will remember this insult." Ji-hoon stopped at the door. He looked back one last time. "We will not come crawling back," he said. "But you might." Then he walked out. The doors closed behind him out across the galaxy. The message spread instantly. Every human received the same order. Return home. Leave everything. Come back to Earth. On assembly station, Shin Hana put down her cleaning tools. Her crew gathered around her, confused and excited. "Is it true?" one of them asked. "Are we really leaving?" Hana nodded. "Start packing. We have 30 days. But what about the stations? The maintenance schedules? If we leave, things will start breaking down." Hana smiled. It was the first real smile she had worn in years. "That is not our problem anymore." In the dead corridor, Admiral Choi Dong-ho received the order on his bridge. His officers looked at him with questions in their eyes. "Sir?" His first officer asked. "What do we do?" Dong-ho stood up slowly. He looked out at the empty stars that had been humanity's prison for so long. "We go home," he said. "And we get ready." "Ready for what, sir?" Dong-ho did not answer immediately. He thought about all the years of insults, all the rejected requests, all the times humanity had been told it was not good enough. Ready to show them who we really are. For the next 30 days, humans left their posts across the galaxy. They walked away from jobs they had done for decades. They said goodbye to alien colleagues who had never treated them as equals. Some aliens tried to stop them. "You cannot leave," a Kreth station master told a group of human workers. "We need you to maintain the reactor systems." The human team leader, a quiet man named Beek Sunwoo, just shrugged. "You told us we were primitive. Surely your advanced species can figure out how to clean a reactor." He walked away. The Kreth station master suddenly realized that he had no idea how the reactor actually worked. Humans had always handled it. Similar scenes played out everywhere. Humans left, and the species who had mocked them discovered how much they had depended on human labor, but it was too late. Humanity was going home. On the last transport leaving assembly station, Shin Hana looked out the window at the great structure she had cleaned for 10 years. She thought about all the times she had been called primitive, all the times she had been treated like dirt. "Goodbye," she whispered, "and good luck. You are going to need it." The ship jumped to faster than light speed. The stars stretched into lines of light, and humanity vanished from the galactic stage. They would not be seen again for 5 years. But when they returned, everything would be different. 5 years of silence. Earth sealed its borders completely. No ships came in. No ships went out. Human frequencies went quiet. Human colonies in distant systems packed up and returned home. It was as if humanity had simply vanished from the universe. The galaxy barely noticed at first. The elder races had more important things to worry about. The Void Swarm continued its advance. Velori fleets fought and died. Kreth trade routes burned. The Morthians lost 3 research colonies, but slowly, quietly, other problems began to appear. Station Master Yorith was a Kreth official who managed Orbital 7, one of the largest trading stations in the galaxy. 3 months after the humans left, his station began to fail. It started with small things. A door that would not open, a light that flickered, a temperature system that ran too hot. Yorith called his maintenance teams, but they could not fix the problems. "These systems are old his chief technician reported. The humans who maintained them used ... unusual methods. We do not understand their repairs. They were just humans, Yoret said. How complicated could it be? Very complicated, it turned out. The humans had not just maintained the station. They had improved it. They had found ways to make old machines work better, longer, and more efficiently. They had done this quietly, without telling anyone, because no one had ever asked. Now those machines were failing, and no one knew how to fix them. Within a year, Orbital 7 was operating at 60% capacity. Within 2 years, it was barely functional. Yoreth sent desperate messages to other Kreth stations, asking for help. They were having the same problems. The dead corridor, once patrolled by human ships, became a nightmare. Pirates and smugglers moved in immediately. Without human patrols to stop them, they grew bold. Trade ships were attacked. Cargo was stolen. Insurance rates doubled, then tripled. The Velori offered to send their own patrols, but their ships were needed to fight the swarm. The Kreth hired mercenaries, but mercenaries were expensive and unreliable. Nothing worked as well as the humans had. Emergency response was even worse. Humans had always been the first to answer distress calls. They went into dangerous situations that other species avoided. They rescued survivors from burning ships and crumbling stations. Now, when disasters happened, help took much longer to arrive. Response times tripled. Death tolls increased. Species that had laughed at humans began to miss them, but the swarm was the real problem. Arbiter Veleth's battle strategy failed exactly as Dr. Kang Yuna had predicted. The swarm adapted to Velori tactics within days. They learned to avoid Velori weapons. They found weaknesses in Velori shields. 12 more systems fell. Then 20. Then 50. The Velori, rulers of the galaxy for 10,000 years, were losing their empire. Veleth called meeting after meeting. He demanded new strategies, new weapons, new ideas. But the elder races had grown comfortable with their old ways. They did not know how to adapt. They did not know how to change. Meanwhile, behind Earth's sealed borders, humanity was transforming. Admiral Choi Dongho stood in a hidden shipyard built inside a massive asteroid. Around him, thousands of workers assembled new warships. These were not the small, simple vessels humanity had used before. These were something entirely new. How many now? Dongho asked his aide. 247 completed, sir. Another 60 in final construction. Dongho nodded. 300 ships. Not enough to match the Velori at their peak. But the Velori were not at their peak anymore. And these ships were better than anything the galaxy had ever seen. In another part of the asteroid, engineer Beek Sunwoo ran final tests on a new faster-than-light drive. He had been working on it for 3 years. Ever since he had walked away from that Kreth station. The numbers look good, said his assistant. A young woman named Yoon Minji. 60% faster than standard drives. Maybe more. Sunwoo smiled. The Velori think their ships are fast. Wait until they see this. Minji looked at the engine with wonder. She was a pilot, not an engineer, but she understood what this meant. They called us primitive, she said quietly. Yes, they did. Sunwoo's smile faded. They stopped watching us because they thought we had nothing worth seeing. They led us into their stations and their ships because they thought we were too stupid to learn anything. He patted the engine gently. They were wrong. Across Earth, similar scenes played out. Humanity had been freed FR. Ohm assembly restrictions. They no longer had to submit their research for approval. They no longer had to pretend to be less than they were. Dr. Kang Yuna led a team of scientists studying captured swarm technology. The assembly had forbidden humans from examining swarm remains, calling it too dangerous for a young species. Now, Yuna's team took apart swarm drones and learned their secrets. Their communication system is fascinating, Yuna told her colleagues. They use quantum links to coordinate their movements. If we can disrupt those links, we can make them blind, finished her assistant. Yuna nodded. Exactly. And I think I know how. She worked for months, then years. The disruption frequency she developed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. It combined human creativity with swarm technology in ways no elder race would have imagined. Commander Shin Hana, once a janitor, now trained pilots in a secret facility on Earth's moon. Her students learned tactics that no alien academy taught. They learned to think for themselves, to adapt, to improvise. The elder races fight with algorithms, Hana told her students. Their ships follow predetermined patterns. They do what their computers tell them to do. She smiled. We are going to teach you to be unpredictable. The enemy cannot predict what you will do if you do not know yourself until the moment you do it. Her students learned to trust their instincts. They practiced scenarios with no correct answers, situations where they had to make impossible choices in seconds. They became something new, something dangerous. 5 years passed. The galaxy continued to suffer. The swarm continued to spread. The elder races continued to lose. Then, one day, Ambassador Park Ji-hoon received a message. It was from High Arbiter Velith. The message was short and desperate. The swarm has reached our capital system. Our fleets are destroyed. We face extinction. Please, help us. Ji-hoon read the message several times. He remembered standing in the assembly hall, being laughed at. He remembered offering help and being rejected. He remembered every insult, every dismissal, every moment of contempt. He could ignore this message. He could let the galaxy burn. Part of him wanted to, but that was not who humanity was. He called a meeting of Earth's leadership. Admiral Dong-ho was there, along with Dr. Kong Yuna, Commander Shin Hana, and dozens of others. They read Velith's message together. They laughed at us, Dong-ho said quietly. Yes, Ji-hoon agreed. They did. They called us primitive, worthless, a joke. Yes. Dong-ho looked at the others. Then he looked back at Ji-hoon. So what do we do? Ji-hoon was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. We show them what humanity really is. Not because they deserve it. Not because we owe them anything. But because it is the right thing to do. He stood up. Prepare the fleet. We are going to save the galaxy. In shipyards across Earth's solar system, engines roared to life. 300 warships, built in secret, crewed by humans who had waited 5 years for this moment, prepared to fly. Captain Yoon Minji took command of the Horizon, the newest and fastest ship in the fleet. Commander Shin Hana returned to the Defiance, now rebuilt and more powerful than ever. Lieutenant Park Jun-ho led his squadron through final drills. They were ready. Humanity was coming back. And nothing would ever be the same. The Valori capital system was dying. 1,000 swarm ships surrounded the central planet. Their dark hulls blocked out the stars. Their weapons fired endlessly at the last Valori defenses. The great crystal cities that had stood for 50,000 years were burning. High Arbiter Velith stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his world end. Around him, his officers wept. They had fought for 3 days without sleep. They had lost over 90% of their fleet. Arbiter, said his communications officer, we are receiving surrender demands from the swarm. Velith did not answer. Surrender would mean conversion. His people would be taken apart and remade into more swarm drones. Their bodies would be used against other species. Their civilization would become a weapon. How many civilian ships escaped? He asked quietly. Perhaps 2 million people, sir. Out of 6 billion. Veleth closed his eyes. 6 billion souls on the capital world alone. Countless more across the system. All of them would die or worse because he had failed to stop the swarm, because he had been too proud to accept help when it was offered. He thought about the human ambassador, standing in the assembly hall 5 years ago, offering technology, offering assistance. And Veleth had laughed at him. He had told humans to carry luggage while real species fought the war. Now there were no real species left, just the swarm and a handful of dying Velori ships. Sir, the tactical officer's voice was sharp with shock. New contacts appearing at the system edge. Veleth opened his eyes. More swarm reinforcements? It did not matter. They were already dead. How many? He asked. 300. Sir, they are not swarm signatures. I do not recognize these ships. Veleth looked at the tactical display. 300 vessels had appeared from nowhere, using a faster-than-light system he had never seen before. They were sleek and deadly, bristling with weapons that sensors could not identify. And a voice came over every channel in the system. Calm, steady, human. Assembly forces, this is Earth Fleet Command. Transmit your survivors' positions and fall back. We will handle this. Veleth stared at his screen in disbelief. Humans? That is impossible. Human ships cannot. He stopped. These were not the small, simple vessels he remembered. These were warships. Real warships. Where had they come from? You cannot fight the swarm, Veleth said into his communicator. Your ships will be destroyed in minutes. You must retreat while you still can. The human voice responded. It belonged to Commander Shin Hana, captain of the Defiance. 5 years ago, she had cleaned floors on Assembly Station. Now she commanded humanity's flagship. Arbiter Veleth, she said. You told us we were primitive. You told us we were worthless. You laughed at us when we offered to help. She paused. Watch us? The human fleet moved forward, but they did not move like other fleets. They did not form neat lines or geometric patterns. They scattered, regrouped, scattered again. They moved like water flowing around rocks. Like fire spreading through dry grass dot, the swarm turned to face this new threat. 1,000 ships against 300. The math was simple. The swarm would win. Lieutenant Park Jung-ho led his squadron into the heart of the enemy formation. His pilots followed no predetermined plan. They made decisions in heartbeats, reacting to threats that computers had not yet processed. Break left. Jung-ho shouted. His squadron split apart, just as a swarm barrage passed through where they had been. Another pilot would have died. Jung-ho's instincts saved him. His weapons fired. Human missiles, designed by engineer Baek Sun-woo and his team, struck swarm vessels with devastating force. The enemy shields, which had stopped Velori weapons easily, flickered and failed. One swarm ship exploded. Then another. Then 10 more. On the Defiance, Commander Shin Hana coordinated the battle. She did not give detailed orders. She did not tell her captains exactly what to do. She trusted them to make their own choices. Horizon, you have 4 enemies on your tail, she said calmly. Captain Yoon Minji's voice came back, full of fierce joy. I see them. Watch this. The Horizon did something impossible. It stopped dead in space, spun 180 degrees, and fired all weapons at once. The 4 swarm ships had no time to react. They flew straight into a wall of destruction. Minji's ship was moving again before the explosions faded. What else do you have? She called out. In the science section of the Defiance, Dr. Kang Yuna activated her weapon. 5 years of research. 5 years of work. It all came down to this moment. Disruption frequency ready, she announced. Broadcasting now. The signal spread across the system, at the speed of light. It was invisible and silent, but its effects were immediate. The swarm stopped moving as one. Their perfect coordination collapsed. Ships that had worked together, like parts of a single machine, began to crash into each other. Drones lost control and spun into space. "It is working," Yuna shouted. "Their communication network is failing." The human fleet pressed their advantage. They struck the confused swarm with everything they had. Explosions lit up the darkness. Swarm vessels died by the dozens, then by the hundreds. Admiral Choi Dong-ho watched from his command ship, directing the overall battle. His officers reported victories from every sector. Human ships were taking damage, but none had been destroyed. The tactics Shin Hana had developed were working perfectly. "Admiral," said his aide, "there are Velari survivors on disabled ships. Should we send rescue teams?" Dong-ho thought about all the times Velari had refused to help humans. All the times they had left human ships to fend for themselves in the dead corridor. "Yes," he said. "Send rescue teams immediately." Medic Oh-jun led the first team. She boarded a crippled Velori cruiser and found survivors huddled in the emergency shelters. They were injured and afraid. They looked at the humans with disbelief. "You came for us?" a Velari officer asked. "After everything we did to your people?" June started treating his wounds without hesitation. "You needed help," she said simply. "That is enough." The battle raged for 6 hours. The swarm fought hard. But without their coordination, they could not match human tactics. Human ships danced through enemy formations, striking and retreating, always unpredictable, always adapting. When it was over, the skies above the Velori capital were clear. Over 800 swarm ships had been destroyed. Not a single human vessel was lost. Commander Shin Hana opened a channel to the remaining assembly ships. Behind her, her bridge crew was exhausted but triumphant. They had done what the entire galaxy thought was impossible. "The threat is eliminated," Hana announced. "You are safe now." For a long moment, there was only silence on the channel. Then Velet's voice came through. It was shaking. "How?" he asked. "How did you do this? Your species is only a few centuries old. You should not have ships like these. You should not have weapons like these." "How?" Hannah smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not kind either. It was the smile of someone who had been underestimated her entire life. "You dismissed us because we were young," she said. "You ignored us because we were different. You laughed at us because we did not look like what you expected power to be." She let that sink in. We are humanity. We adapt. We learn. We overcome. We spent 40 years watching you, learning from you, understanding you. Then we spent 5 years becoming something you never imagined we could be. She paused. You saw weakness because you only looked at the surface. You never bothered to see what was underneath. On his ruined flagship, Veleth sank into his command chair. His glow, once the brightest in the galaxy, was dim and flickering. He had ruled the assembly for thousands of years. He had believed his species was superior to all others. He had been so very wrong. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Thank you for saving us, even though we did not deserve it." Hana nodded slowly. "No, you did not deserve it. But we did not save you because you deserved it. We saved you because it was the right thing to do." She looked out at the stars, at the debris field that had once been the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. "That is what humanity is," she said. "We do not repay cruelty with cruelty. We do not answer hate with hate. We prove our worth through our actions, not our words." She turned back to the channel. "We came back. We saved your world. We will help you rebuild. And we will not ask for thanks or payment or apologies." Her voice hardened slightly. "But you will never dismiss us again. It was not a request. It was not a threat. It was simply a fact. The galaxy had changed forever, and everyone knew it. Humanity had returned. 1 year after the Battle of the Valori capital, the old Galactic Assembly was officially dissolved. It had ruled the stars for over 10,000 years. It had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. But it could not survive its own arrogance. In its place, the unified council was formed. Every species had an equal voice. Every world had equal rights. There were no elder races and younger races anymore. There were only members. Ambassador Park Ji-hoon sat at the new council table. His seat was positioned no differently than any other delegates. After 40 years of standing in the back of the room, he finally had a place at the table. Beside him sat representatives from the Valori, the Kref, the Morthians, and dozens of other species. They looked at Ji-hoon with respect now. Some looked at him with fear. A few, he thought, looked at him with gratitude. High Arbiter Velith was no longer High Arbiter. He had given up his title after the battle. Now he was simply Velith, a common delegate representing what remained of his people. The swarm had destroyed much of Valori space before they were stopped. Rebuilding would take generations. After the first council session ended, Velith approached Ji-hoon. The alien moved slowly, as if carrying a great weight. His glow, once so bright, was barely visible now. "May I speak with you?" Velith asked. His voice was quiet. Humble. Ji-hoon nodded. They walked together to a quiet corner of the great hall. Through the crystal windows, they could see ships from 100 worlds passing by. Human ships flew among them now, respected and welcomed. "I owe you an apology," Velith said. "Not just for what I said in this hall 5 years ago. For everything. For how my people treated yours for 40 years. Ji-hoon listened without speaking. "We saw a young species and assumed youth meant weakness," Velith continued. "We saw ships that looked primitive and assumed primitive minds built them. We heard humans speak softly and thought you had nothing to say." He shook his head slowly. "We were fools. Worse than fools, we were cruel." Ji-hoon considered this for a long moment. He thought about all the years of insults, all the rejected proposals, all the times he had stood in this hall and been ignored. "You are not entirely wrong," he said finally. Velith looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" "When we joined the assembly, we were weak. We were inexperienced. We had everything to learn." Ji-hoon smiled slightly. "You just made one mistake. You thought we could not learn. I do not understand." "Every rejection taught us self-reliance," Ji-hoon explained. "Every insult taught us patience. Every time you dismissed us, we learned that we could only count on ourselves." He put his hand on Velith's shoulder. The alien flinched at the touch, then relaxed. "You did not break humanity, Velith. You forged us. The fire that could have destroyed us made us stronger instead. Perhaps we should thank you." Velith's eyes glistened. For the first time in 10,000 years, he had nothing to say. In another part of the station, Dr. Kang Yuna led her first official meeting of the Council's Scientific Cooperation Division. Scientists from 30 species sat around her table, including several Valori who had rejected her proposals years ago. "The disruption frequency that stopped the swarm," said a Valori scientist named Torin. "We would like to study it, to understand how it works." Yuna nodded. "Of course, I will share all my research freely. That was always my intention." Torin looked uncomfortable. "Dr. Kang, I must confess something. 5 years ago, you submitted a proposal to work with my team. I did not even read it before rejecting it. I assumed human science had nothing to offer." He paused. "I was wrong. Your disruption frequency saved billions of lives, including mine. I am sorry." Eunice studied him for a moment. She remembered that rejection. It had been her 7th. Each one had hurt more than the last. "I forgive you," she said simply. "Now let us do the work we should have been doing all along." The meeting continued. Scientists who had never worked together began to share ideas. Human creativity mixed with Velori precision. Kreth practicality combined with Morthian theory. For the first time, the galaxy's greatest minds were truly cooperating. Admiral Choi Dong-ho had a different role now. He commanded the Unified Defense Fleet, a force made up of ships from every member species. His officers included Velori captains, Kreth navigators, and Morthian engineers. In his training facility, young beings from a dozen worlds learned to fight together. They studied human tactics, but they also learned from other traditions. The goal was not to make everyone fight like humans. It was to combine the best of every species into something greater. Unpredictability is our greatest weapon, Dong-ho taught his students. The enemy cannot defeat what it cannot predict. But unpredictability alone is not enough. You must also trust your comrades. You must know that they will be there when you need them. His students listened carefully. Among them was a young Velori pilot, one of the first of her species to train under human instructors. She had lost her family in the swarm attacks. She had every reason to hate the universe. But here, training, alongside humans and others, she found something she had lost. Hope. Commander Shin Hana retired from active military service. She had spent enough years fighting. Now she wanted to build something. She established the Academy of Integrated Species, a school where young Engs from every world could learn together. Her students studied science and art, history and philosophy. They played together, argued together, and became friends. The old assembly failed because it saw difference as a problem. Hana told her students on the first day, "The Unified Council will succeed because we see difference as a strength. Each of you brings something unique to this room. Together, we are more than any of us could be alone." A young human student raised his hand. "Commander, some of the older generations still hate each other. The Velori and the Kreth have fought wars. How do we fix that?" Hannah smiled sadly. "We cannot fix the past. We cannot make old wounds disappear. But we can build a future where those wounds never happen again." She looked around the room at faces from a dozen different species. "You are that future. The friendships you make here, the understanding you build, will shape the galaxy for centuries to come. That is more important than any battle I ever fought." Engineer Beek Sung-woo's faster-than-light drives became the new standard for interstellar travel. His technology was shared freely with all council members. Ships that once took weeks to cross the galaxy now made the journey in days. Captain Yoon Minji's Horizon was preserved as a museum ship, displayed in the orbital station above Earth. Thousands of visitors came to see it each day. Beings from across the galaxy who wanted to understand how such a small species had built something so remarkable. Minji herself became a teacher, training the next generation of pilots. She was strict and demanding, but her students loved her. They knew she had fought in the greatest battle in galactic history. They knew she had helped save civilization itself. Medico June continued her work, but now she led hospital ships that served all species. Her crews treated injured beings regardless of their world of origin. The barriers between species meant nothing in her hospitals. Pain was pain. Healing was healing. On Earth, life returned to normal, but it was a different kind of normal. Humans no longer felt like outsiders in their own galaxy. They walked with pride among the stars. They had earned their place. In a small park in what had once been the city of Seoul, a memorial stood. It was not a grand monument or an impressive statue. It was simple and modest, just like the people it honored. The memorial remembered the 40 years humanity had spent as outsiders. It honored the janitors and maintenance workers, the patrol officers and emergency responders, All the humans who had served the assembly with dignity while being treated with contempt. The inscription on the memorial said, "They told us we were nothing, so we became everything. Not for revenge, but because we knew who we were, even when no one else did." Ambassador Park Ji-hoon visited the memorial on the anniversary of humanity's withdrawal from the assembly. He stood alone in the quiet park, reading the words he knew by heart. Footsteps approached behind him. He turned to see Dr. Kang Yuna, Admiral Choi Dong-ho, and Commander Shin Hana. They had all come to the same place, drawn by the same memories. No one spoke for a long moment. They simply stood together, remembering everything they had overcome. Finally, Ji-hoon broke the silence. "We did it," he said. "We actually did it." "Did what?" Yuna asked. "Changed the galaxy. Made them see us as equals. Built something better than what came before." Dong-ho nodded slowly. "I used to think about revenge. When they laughed at us, when they rejected us, I wanted to make them pay. And now?" Hannah asked. "Now I realize that revenge would have made us just like them. What we did instead was harder, but it was right." Yuna looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear in the darkening evening. Among those stars were hundreds of species who had once looked down on humanity. Now they looked at humans with respect. "What happens next?" she asked. Ji-hoon smiled. "We keep going. We keep building. We keep showing the galaxy what we can do when we work together instead of against each other." He turned away from the memorial and faced his friends. The old assembly lasted 10,000 years because it enforced order through power. The unified council will last longer because it is built on something better: trust, cooperation, understanding. He started walking toward the park's exit. The others followed. Humanity was dismissed because we were young and small and different. But those things were never weaknesses. They were our greatest strengths. We came from a harsh world that taught us to adapt. We survived disasters that should have destroyed us. We learned to work together because we had to. He stopped at the gate and looked back at the memorial one last time. The galaxy tried to break us. Instead, it made us who we were meant to be. And now we are going to help every other species become what they are meant to be too. He stepped through the gate and into the future. A future where humanity stood among the stars, not as servants or outsiders, but as equals, as leaders, as friends. They had been dismissed. They had walked out, and when they returned, they changed everything. Forever.